and I would walk down to Kentucky Fried Chicken and get a bucket of chicken, and that was my post protocol from Ironman. So
hey, no problems on that one. I got that one down.
Possible.
Welcome to The Spin. It is July 24th. We are 2 weeks away from the CrossFit Games. That's kind of hard to believe. And below me, Mr. Heat One, Tyler Watkins. And below him, Mr. JY Barbell and soon to be Papa, John Young. But our special guest today, the one and only Chris Hinshaw, the guy who knows all endurance and has upgraded everybody's game in the CrossFit space. So welcome, Chris.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys having me. Yeah,
absolutely. I know I wanted to get you on here because a lot of the workouts that we know so far, and
all of them,
everything that we know, I think is at least some type of moving across space, whether it's running, swimming, carrying objects. And so I really wanted to get you on to kind of get your thoughts on what we know and kind of what the athletes are going to expect. And then as you know, all of the fans that are watching are definitely on the Heat One app and picking their athletes for the win the $10,000. What are you looking for and trying to do that? So before we get into that, like I know last year you were working with Alex Gazan. Who are you working? You're still working with her. Are you working with anybody else that's going to be at the games?
So Adler's, we're going on 3 years. And then Alex Gazan, we're coming up to our second year. So I've had a full year with Alex. And that's been an incredible. I mean, that girl's a phenomenal talent. It's really interesting to me. I've been in the sport since 2008, and we saw a massive shift, around 2012, 13, 14 in terms of performance. And then Mat Fraser raised the bar again. But these athletes and what they're doing in terms of their abilities now, but it's the trajectory that I look at. Like, are they plateaued or are they improving? And I mean, I hope Alex doesn't mind, but Alex, pulled the 706 2K row. When I was out in Las Vegas with Ricky and Alex was there and Justin Cutler, and she was doing a progression for 100 cals and went 443 on Echo Bike. She did 10 by 800 meters and held 256 with a work to rest of 1-to-1, 10 by 800 and 256.
That's the marathon predictor, right?
Yeah. So it's a real, that's what I love, shoving that one in runners. I mean, let's face it, the runners and triathletes, it's my community, but you guys don't train real running. And it's like, no, Alex Gazan did 10 by 800. Yeah. And she did it averaging 256. And so, the rule is that if you do enough volume to run a marathon, which they're not, but if you take the 256 and you convert it from minutes and seconds to hours and minutes, and then add maybe 5 minutes, it says that she should be able to run a 3:01 marathon.
And that's
now. I imagine CrossFitters on the upper end of that, like their 10 by 800 would be faster than their marathon pace.
Yeah, so that's because they don't do enough
because of the volume.
Right.
That's correct.
But if she shifted,
she has the ability.
She would never be.
She ain't shifting, Tyler. She'd have to lose like 40 pounds.
Yeah, I mean, that's what's interesting is that weight really does matter in the movement of running. I mean, that's why you see on the elite level, marathon runners will intentionally dehydrate themselves, lose the water weight, because that loss in weight, that sprung weight, matters. It's more beneficial in terms of performance to have that weight loss and suffer from dehydration. And so it's one of those calculated, I'm talking about elite level. They're
like Kipchoge's
really looking at that. Yeah. And what is his weight at the end of it?
No, probably close to that.
It's the amount of weight, right?
Next time I run a 5K, I'm going to dehydrate myself. It's Chris said it's a good move.
Not a 5K.
not a 5K.
A 5K, you're not going to have any liquids.
We're going to do that.
Liquids in a 5K.
We're going to do that field sprint and then the mile event. We're going to go out there and do that before the athletes do it. And I'm just not going to drink any water 3 days before so I can PR that mile. It's going to go great.
Wow, we're going to call it the idiot mile.
That's so awesome.
Event 1.
Hey, real quick before we go on to event 1. I just wanted just because I don't know. Chris, what is the protocol after you do something like a 4-hour event? A 4-hour thing.
Like a 4-hour bike ride?
So there's a joke here.
I did not know that you were coming on until like 2 hours ago, right? And I happened to just do 100,000 meters on the bike erg this morning.
Whoa!
At 1 a.m.
Well, yeah, I couldn't sleep. And then I was really upset that I couldn't sleep. And then I was like, I'm just going to ride a bike erg. And then it turned into 100,000 meters.
That's what you were able to come up with out of all the things, like not reruns of The Office.
Well, me and Jason Hopper had a Tour de France bet. We're both big into the Tour de France, and the loser of the bet has to bike 100,000 meters. Well, on a bike erg in one sitting. That's what the loser has to do. He's got the games, so like I won the bet, but I was prepared to lose. Like mentally, I was prepared to lose. Right. And I just wanted to do it. So I ended up doing it. Terrible decision. I feel not good at all. But what's the protocol? Like the next 24 hours.
I will tell you that. So every time when I did Ironman in Kona, I would finish. And the very first thing that I would do, and this is the truth, I would immediately fake a level of damage to get myself into the medic tent and get a couple of bags. If you get a couple of bags,
all right. If you don't have that 2 to 3 medical liters, tent by you,
so that's your loss. You should have arranged that. And then the second thing I would do is I would leave the medic tent and I would walk down to Kentucky Fried Chicken and get a bucket of chicken, and that was my post protocol from Ironman. So
hey, no problems on that one. I got that one down.
Possible.
Yeah, so that's what I did. Just take that advice. Yeah, medic tent, Kentucky Fried Chicken.
All right, sounds good. Appreciate you.
No, that Jason Hopper's a stud on the bike. He's I'm a fan of the tour. I mean, I think what we saw this year with the winner, that is one of the most talented. Yeah, one of the most talented athletes ever to exist. And if people have not seen what he is capable of doing, he is one of the greatest athletes to ever live. I mean, to be that dominant in a sport that's been around forever and dominant, where he's the only adult in the sandbox. Everybody else is just, first and second graders. Mm-hmm. It's that impressive what you are seeing. And this is a race that is without question the most brutal competition. And he treats it as if it's nothing.
A game.
That he is, like the fact that this guy did not have to take the risk and take that flyer off the front, going solo, knowing that the next day was even going to be more brutal. He didn't conserve and wait. He just went full gas, full throttle, because he knew he was that good. And the next day, what'd he do? Won again. He is, Yeah, I keep telling Hopper though that's his sport. Like he should be a domestique on the flats. And you get behind Hopper,
he's Wout Van Aert 2.0. If you get him down to 170, for sure.
Yeah, there's no chance Jason's ever even seen 170.
What's crazy, and like people don't understand like how good these people are. Like what 7 watts a kilo is for 40 minutes. Like Jason's 20-watt test is 420. And it's probably the most in CrossFit. I don't think anybody's ever is touching that. I think Roman might get close to 400, but like I think Jason's the best on the bike erg.
By far on the bike, by far.
And now
he's the man.
Now, Tadej Pogacar weighs 136 pounds and holding the same watts for twice as long.
They could ride an echo bike without their arms at 80 RPMs.
and sustained.
Yeah. So just without the arms. Yeah. So take that into account. Yeah. It's a level of mastery that we're really fortunate to see. Yeah. That was one of the greatest things to witness. And I'm not talking, it wasn't a thrilling, it's like watching Tia compete, right? It's incredibly boring, but what you're watching is essentially God out there on the floor competing, because you won't see that again. It's that magnificent of what this guy is doing. Yeah, you got to take a look.
Well, I mean, it's like Matt in 2016, though. Like, he wasn't that dominant the year before, right? And then, 2016, Matt killed everybody, but I think that was the most exciting thing. When Matt took off on that ranch run, everybody was like, hold up. what the freak is this? Like, and like, I think it has that about all, but we'll move on. That's over Brian and Tyler's heads. They're not about that.
Yeah,
I know.
About that.
The best I could do to hang was make fun of Jason and how heavy he is.
So moving on to the CrossFit Games, event 1, a run into a swim. First of all, how often did you train a run into the swim? It's usually the opposite.
Everybody does, yeah.
I would do a lot of run swims. They would have them as, they call it biathlon. So you could do a run, swim, run. You could do a run into a swim. You could do swims into runs. I've done lots of different combinations of those things. I mean, I raced as a professional for 7 years, and this was back in the day where you would race, every weekend. There were times when I would race a Saturday and go to a different race on a Sunday. And so, yeah, I've done plenty of this type of combination. I know exactly. And this distance is it's a common distance. Typically what they would have is a 5K run into a 1,500 meter swim, but an 800 isn't uncommon, and then going into another 5K run. So yeah, I like the ratios that they have in this. It's a good balanced ratio.
Is it a different stimulus going from a run into a swim? Like, do they need to prepare differently?
Not prepare. It's about being aware of what your body is capable of doing when it goes from a run posture into a swim posture, and what it means in terms of your recovery. Are you able to recover faster or slower by going a run into a swim, and taking that into account for that transition? Because every time that you change a movement, your blood with that oxygen has to reroute. I mean, what we saw, for example, at semifinals, that combination of doing a clean and jerk into a run is very, very difficult for the body, because that blood rushes up into the arms, and now you start this run and you have a lag. You have a good 20 to 25 second lag for the body to switch into the movement of running. But there are certain combinations, for example, a run into a swim, that occurs extremely fast.
Okay. So they should be able to adapt fairly quickly, is kind of what
I'd go. Yeah, I would, if I was doing this, I would hit that water at, a 5:15 pace, and yeah, I'd win the swim. That's my strategy.
There you go, Ricky.
I would go full gas.
You heard him. Go do it.
So Ricky's gonna win. Got it.
By the way, Ricky I was with him that week and in Vegas earlier this month, and he is an incredibly talented athlete and super quiet, super humble, and then just lays down the law. I mean, it's really impressive, like the environment that he has back in Australia, and the way he has his house, the gym, the store that he shops in, the beach, and it's just this tight little community. But when he trains and what he does, it's so impressive, his command of doing things. And it's almost like he's got this exposure into this, almost like he trains at Mayhem, where he's got, all these eyes on him, but really he doesn't. But his composure when he's getting after it, I was genuinely impressed by him. Genuinely. And I work with Adler, and so here I am, I'm like, well, this guy's like,
Did you let Jeff
he
know?
Is the real deal.
Because Ricky's coming.
Well, Well, so I've been trying to get Ricky and Jeff together to do a High Rocks double for a long time, and Jeff reached out to Ricky, and so they've been talking about it. Yeah, I'd like to see them. They're not going to set a world record, but if they go after and do the Go Ruck, where it's a 20-pound ruck, then they'll easily set a world record. Yeah. So I'm trying to get them to do that, but no, they're very friendly with one another. And I always felt that if you have an ally at that level where it's 2 against 38, that's a huge value, especially at that level of the men's field, like to be able to have that.
What if you're a good runner and a bad swimmer?
So like, does this hurt or benefit Vellner, the order that it's in?
So it's definitely better for Vellner because he's going to get in front, and then it's very difficult to pass a swimmer if you don't know what you're doing. You're going to pick up speed, and then you're going to ram right into them. And anything that is disrupting your pace is going to disrupt your performance. And so for Vellner, no, it's a huge positive. He's a big guy too. And so a lot of people will have a difficult time getting around him. We see it all the time in CrossFit where people I couldn't get around him. And it's like, it's Ron Ortiz. Yeah, he's a big guy, but it's just a guy.
How would the strategy differ? Like, or what would you advice you'd give if somebody's a good runner but a bad swimmer, and then vice versa, they're a bad runner but they're really good in the water? Like, how would you approach that? So
the very first thing that I would recommend is that you have to have an idea of what is your potential pace, like on the run. And this is the number one place for people to start. And what people should be really thinking about is, all right, if it was just a straight 3.5 mile run, how fast could I do it as a time trial? If it's just a straight run. So that's the fastest that you could ever possibly perform at. You're not going to ever go that fast. Now, personally, I would like to see, if I was doing it, I would get really close to that time because I'm confident in my ability to swim. But your question was like a non-swimmer. And so what you want to be thinking about then is, what is the slowest that you would run? Well, what you do is you add together your projected run time with your projected swim time. So let's just say you're going to do this run in 25 minutes and you'll do the swim in 15 minutes. So that's 40 minutes. I would ask you, what is the total distance you could run in 40 minutes? And what would that pace be? So that would be your fastest and slowest speeds. Your run speed is going to sit somewhere in there. The difference between those in minutes per mile is not that great. And so that's what you really need to be thinking about. The question is going to be, is this mass start? If they're going to take 80 people at once, it's going to be more than likely a cross-country type start. 80 people that are trying to narrow into that bottleneck on that bike path, which let's just say it's wide and it's 12 feet.
Which is
really
6 feet.
Wide. Don't we know it's 6 feet?
I don't know the width of it, but it's still, I mean, it's maybe a little bit like 8-10 feet maybe.
So you're
but
getting maybe 2 people next to each other. You're not going to get
2-3 people. Yeah, it's tight.
Yeah.
So, right. So imagine if that portion in a cross-country run where they're all lined up, you got 80 of them, and then it's a funnel. And let's just say that funnel is 400 meters down the road. Do you know what that 400 meters is going to be like for these athletes?
Sprint.
It's going to be a full-time trial. It's going to remind you of a lot of that 2013 row where they did a 2K row and drew straight into the half marathon. And everybody was saying, oh, they're going to dog the open in 2K because they've got another 19,000 to go. And they didn't. Like Khalipa, what did he go, 6:20 for his 2K? And so that's what we're going to see here. We're going to see people in that opening 400 meters break a minute, and then they're just going to have to hang on because you can't get boxed out.
For the run swim run was the same way.
Everybody
was like, I think I PR'd my mile on the first mile and a half on the run swim run, and then it killed people, right? I mean, Fraser almost drowned.
Well,
I know he was drafting Fikowski, and that's why, but
But yeah, so that was the thing, is that Fraser was even telling people in that event, like getting them to go with him, because he knew that he wasn't going to be the fastest swimmer. And so his best chances were, I'm going to get these fast swimmers to go with me. Right. And you know what? He was one of the most masterful tacticians that's been around. Very, very smart.
Would you tell Haley to talk trash to Tia then on this run and be like, come on, girl. I thought you were it. I thought you're supposed to be something. What happened, Tia?
Aren't you guys impressed by Haley in the sense that she is not intimidated? Like when I watched her 2 years ago on that bike course and even running to the Capitol, she just blew right past Tia. And I don't care who you are, you're passing Tia, and to not sit and catch her, draft off her for a small amount of time, weigh out the scenarios, check on her breathing, like look at the variables, and then make your move. Haley just goes right past her like it's nothing. That to me is a very, very rare athlete that is not intimidated. And Haley's not. No, Haley would never wait. She's never even going to talk. She's just going to go. This is a good one for Haley.
One of the points that came up about the swim that it was actually a new point I hadn't heard yet was the water temperature having a negative effect on your heart rate and your ability to slow your heart rate in the swim. Do you think there's any that holds any water? Pun intended.
No. So what I would recommend if you run into trouble when you get into the water is you just need to be prepared to do some breaststroke. This is not where we have the ocean to deal with and you're going to be at risk of drowning. That is not what's going to happen here. So you should hit that boat ramp, and as soon as your speed slows in that water because of the depth, it's time to start swimming. But if you begin to hyperventilate because you're hypoxic due to the run, then all you do is a few strokes of breaststroke, and that breaststroke is going to bring that breathing rhythm back. And right away, then you're going to be settling into the movement of swimming. The beauty of this is that it's going to be perfectly glass. It's, this early in the morning, that lake is going to be magnificent. It's going to be, yeah, I don't think that that's a concern at all. I've done many triathlons in Houston and hot weather, and yeah, no, it's completely fine. It's completely fine. I don't think that's an issue. I think the issue is going to be the start. And if you get pinned back for whatever reason, you're not going to be able to make that up. You do not want to get behind. That's why, in my opinion, if you're a good runner, you have an advantage here.
Yeah.
Yeah. You do not want to fall behind.
And then obviously, like Friday night, we know that there's going to be some type of field sprint, a star sandbag, and then a mile run. I guess first question is a 3.5 mile run and a mile run.
And then Chad.
Yeah, but like just are the same people good at the 3.5 mile run going to be good at the mile run for those that are at the CrossFit Games? Like, I feel like it's going to be pretty highly correlated.
Yeah. Wait, let me get some water. 1 second.
Yep.
Dang, you dehydrated him with that question. He's preparing for a marathon.
I kind of feel like Dave Castro is like romancing me. I don't know why. Like, I feel so good about I haven't spoken to him about it, but I feel like he's trying to speak to me, like in some way. I'm so flattered by his pillow talk that I love it. I'm really surprised at the workouts, but what I like about it is testing different capabilities. The difference between 1,600 meters and 3.5 miles is dramatically different. Now, they're still considered aerobic events, right? But if you look at the sport of track and field, they don't consider an endurance event truly starting until you get to 3,000 meters. So 1.8 miles. So 1,600 meters is considered, middle distance, and it's a different type of a test. Now, I still would expect the endurance athletes to do better than the speed, strength, power athletes in that type of a time domain. But this is what Dave did that was brilliant, is he is putting a odd object strength endurance piece, which we don't know what it is. And that advantage is going to go to those shorter time domains, strong speed, power-based athletes. The problem will be those athletes, if they haven't been doing their homework, they're not going to recover in time for the 1600. And so do they intentionally slow down in their odd object sprint, the stars sprint, in order to preserve spots in the 1600? And that's really the question, because those games are now being played in the sport that you may want to sacrifice a spot or two in order to make up, 2x the spots in the next event. And I love the fact that Dave, first of all, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, when programming the teams, realized we need to make this about strategy. The smart teams who know each other well, that can strategically think, that can tactically think, should win. That work out as a team. We haven't seen that with individuals until just the last 2 years, where they're thinking tactically. They're thinking long term. How does tomorrow look? What about the next day? Can I make up more points if I sacrifice here? And that's the smart athlete. If you want to win, if you want a podium.
I think it's also just going to give rise to fitness in general. Not even aerobic. Obviously, the aerobic people will do better in the mile, but just it'll give rise to fitness as a whole because you recover better. Like, I remember you saying Fraser's not the best sprinter. He just recovers better than everybody. And that's why he did what he did in 2016. As amazing as it is, it has a role to do with it. And and I think that we'll see the same pattern. Just who recovers the best will do the best in the mile. Maybe they can run 95% of their actual mile time, and then somebody who's not recovering as good, even if they might have a faster mile time fresh, only does 90% of their mile time. And then I just think it'll give a rise to actual fitness, because that's how fast you can recover. I think it's how fit you are in general.
And I think that's what's really impressive about this test, is that, yes, we're testing your ability to manage an odd object for a short amount of time, right? And then we're managing a aerobic running event, 1600 meters. But the real test is the space in between. This is a test about your ability to recover. And that is a major measure of aerobic fitness. How fast can you clear fatigue? So like, if you guys have ever done a VO2 max test, you wear this mask and it's measuring your oxygen breathing in and the carbon dioxide going out. Well, at the end of a VO2 test, they make you wear this mask for 2 minutes. And what they're doing is they're checking your ending test heart rate, your heart rate after 1 minute, and your heart rate after 2 minutes. Recovery matters. And what I love about it is that Dave is really testing an athlete's ability to recover. And
what's the best way to recover? Like,
boy, you guys you come on all the secrets.
He told us.
I'm saying,
dude.
I'm saying if you have 2 minutes, right? Between
in that 2 minutes.
In that 2 minutes, right?
Like, for that 2 minutes, not like training.
Yeah.
Just a leg and a thigh, man.
It's training and it's running and then walking and then running and doing different speeds and all that jazz.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. I like that plan. No, so what you really need to be doing, and honestly, it's a little late to develop a protocol, but you need to recognize that recovery is something that needs to be part of a training program. So if we just back up a little bit and just think about the sport of MMA, and they're doing 5-minute rounds and then they get a minute of rest. What they do during that minute of rest matters. And what I mean by that is that in CrossFit, we do constantly vary to keep the body guessing. But in the recovery is the space that we don't want the body to guess. We want the brain, we want the body to know that we are now in a recovery mode, and our purpose is to prepare us in the best possible way for what we're about to go do. If we always do random recovery protocols, then we're not going to maximize that opportunity.
Your heart won't calm as quick.
That's right. And what we're interested in is so one of the pieces that I monitor with Jeff and Alex is their rate of recovery, the slope. So if you take a certain time domain in a workout, let's say you're 25 minutes into a workout, and your heart rate is at 180 beats a minute, and you now have a 1 minute recovery interval. What I'm looking at is your heart rate going from 180 to where did it go in that 1 minute? And I can now take those two different time domains with the two different heart rates and create a slope, a rate of a degree of slope for that recovery protocol. Well, that rate of recovery is how I measure their performance improvement. One of the major pieces in their ability to recover is their ritual, their protocol. What do they do to maximize that? And that is something that you as an individual athlete must develop. What I want people to realize is that there's three parts though. You get control of your breathing as number one. If you're hyperventilating, you get control of the breath first. Nothing other than that breath. When you get in control of the breath, now it's time to move. Keep those slow twitch fibers moving. Those slow twitch fibers love that lactate as a fuel. And when they consume that lactate as fuel, it grabs the acidity, those fatigue causing metabolites, and it removes it from the body. So you want to keep the body moving in it. And then with the last like 3, 4, 5 seconds, you get the head back in the game to what you're doing next. And that's the protocol. But what you do in terms of, do you sit down? Do you decide to hinge at the waist? Do you want your hands above your head? Do you want your hands on your waist? What is it that you actually prefer? I always find it interesting when I watch open workouts and, games athletes, if they do a certain interval and then they get a minute of rest, they're in a isometric squat, a deep squat. And then when they finish the workout, they're laying down. Why aren't they in an isometric squat if it's such a good recovery protocol at the end of the workout? Why are they laying at the end of the workout and not after the interval? And so that's where I would really, I'd like to see athletes that will be more focused on their own individual protocol with the intent of measuring it and driving heart rate down in that amount of time, that 1 minute and 2 minute time period.
Is everybody different, just what's comfortable to you, or is there a better protocol? Because Fraser did the deep squat.
It was a big contention of ours.
I know, like Brooke Wells has the bend over rest. You know what I mean, with elbows on her thighs,
which is a really good one. Yeah, the one that is the most effective. So there's no science that out there that hands above the head, like they say, oh, that opens up your chest and your rib cage and all of that. Yeah, that's not what we're thinking about when we're gasping for air and extreme hyperventilation. But I see huge value if you can lean against something and take the weight off of your upper body and slightly hinge at the waist. If you don't have something to lean against, I do prefer what Brooke Wells does. I think that what she does is it's sound, it's good. But whether your hands are above your head, your hands are on your waist, you're hinging at the waist. I've never come across research of one of those is better than the other. Now, there is talk about, laying down and just sitting down because, like we talked about swing, it is easier for your blood to flow when you're more horizontal. And so that's really a personal preference. Now, a lot of people may think that, oh, geez, look at so-and-so, they're laying down on the ground. They must be dying. Well,
I don't want to take the energy to get back up.
Well, and the problem is that people will sit there and think, oh, look at so-and-so, must be dead. And the athlete, of course, their insecurity doesn't want that to happen. So that's why I don't think that we see people laying down until after. For some reason, 100% of the field will lay down afterwards.
It's the Miko effect.
I don't know. When you guys figure that out, let me know. I'm still trying to figure that out.
Bro move. Shout out to whoever at the game lays down on the floor during the event.
We'll know who's been watching.
Meanwhile, Tia just walks off and looks at everybody with the meeting mug.
Could you imagine how nice that must be to sit there and go, yeah, I'm going to enter a full-blown Ironman triathlon the week after the games, because it's just kind of like a warm-up. I mean, she is it's such a phenomenal thing. And we're really lucky to see that happen. I mean, here she does, she has a child and she's better than ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I told Tyler and Brian, I want her to win an event, and then if it's an event that she's gonna crush, right? And then immediately go grab Willow from Shane, and then have Willow in hand as she's high fiving everybody at the finish line once they're like come across the finish line.
Yeah, we're really lucky to be able to see that occur. I mean, that was one of the things when Fraser retired. The year before he retired, like we lived near each other, like we were a minute down the street. And selfishly, I was like, dude, I didn't want him to retire because it's athletes like that move the needle. What Tia is doing is what Bob Demon did in 1968 with the long jump, that she's setting
Mexico
the bar
City,
at a level.
just in case you don't know.
Right. Oh, yeah, there you go. Love you, man. And so what she is doing is showing what this type of athlete, the athlete that is kind of balanced in between, where they've got a good ratio of speed and strength and power, but also endurance and stamina. They're balanced. And it's showing the world what this CrossFit athlete can do. And that's what Matt was doing, was setting the bar and doing things that were impossible.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I admire about Tia, is that she is doing things that's never been done before, but that's not capping her ability. She's not saying that that's what all people should be able to do. She basically is saying, you know what? The gates are open and I'm just going to let it fly. And it's interesting to me that when she has an event sewn up, she's still hitting the gas.
Yeah. I mean, she talked about that in semifinals. Like there were a couple that she and Shane said that she kind of let up when they want to see her keep pushing. Like that's, she wins 5 out of the 6 events.
Yep. Yeah.
I know she's trash now. Can't even push for the 6 out of 6. Good grief, Tia. Baby really took a hit on her. We'll see what happens.
No, I appreciate you jumping on here, Chris. You'll be at the games. Will we be doing some activations, I hope?
I am. I'm doing a couple of activations. Thursday night, we're going to do I think a 5K run at a local gym as part of Podium and Adidas, and that will be a lot of fun. We're going to do some breathing protocols with the people that do it, and then I'm doing a couple of workouts at another local gym as part of with GoWad. Awesome. Hopefully, I could do. I'm really dying to co-coach with Carolyn Lambray. CrossFit Wonderland, Jeff Adler's wife and coach. And I love doing collabs with her. She's just, have you guys talked to her much? I mean, she is one of the most brilliant coaches that I've ever come across.
Just some messages back and forth, but haven't had her on the show.
She's the real deal. She is, and she's somebody, I'm not nervous by many people, but I'll tell you something funny. So before Rogue, Jeff was setting up his a new space, a new gym space, and he also had messed up his back real bad, and he wasn't sleeping well. And meanwhile, he's like 8 days out of Rogue, and I sent him 3 workouts, and I said, this workout is very difficult to do. Do these if if you want something a little less edgy. Well, he doesn't read the note and he just does the first one on the list. Caroline sends me a note afterwards and she's like, what are you doing? I mean, literally just read me. And it was so just like right after. And so I was sitting there, I'm like, the only thing I could think about was I wrote back a text. I'm like, I'm sorry. Like, that's all I said. There was nothing to say. I was so afraid. I'm like, it wasn't my fault, but I couldn't tell her that. It was just, I'm sorry. No, she's legit. Like,
I don't know if me and Carolyn would get along then, because I'd be like, you better check your boy, Carolyn. Don't message me like this again.
No, she's great. Yeah, no, they're great. We went on a did 6 seminars, like master classes in Europe after Rogue, and to watch both of them, in a 2-hour class, Adler doing, I mean, he was exceptionally great because he's a coach. So he's able to articulate a class and state the purpose. And that was good. But she's incredibly smart. I mean, some of the things that we come up with are just incredibly creative. Yeah, she's a good one.
Yeah. Well, if anybody who's watching is gonna be out there in Fort Worth, make sure you find Chris and jump in on his 5K or any other activations. And
there you go.
We'll see you. We'll see you around there. So yeah, absolutely.
Yep, I'll come by.
All right, man. Appreciate it. And
thanks, guys.
enjoy safe travels to Fort
Thanks
Worth.
for coming on, Chris.
Thank you, guys.